and welcome back to Dave and Ryan Review. Today we're going to be reviewing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, featuring Gene Wilder. But before we get into that, Dave, how's it going?
I'm good, man. Good. Another nice week out the way. Ready for the nice review.
Yeah, good. Now, this was, we were just thinking about, I guess, films to review, and I guess this one kind of came into my head because of the trailer that dropped for the new Willy Wonka film,
hmm
just called Wonka. I guess it's supposed to be a prequel to this, I assume. Um, but yeah, so it came into my head just because again it was just to look back at this one. So yeah, so we're doing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Sorry, not Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Um,
I was gonna ask because I was pretty sure it was Willy Wonka.
yes, it's Willy. The film is called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Obviously, the actual book that is based on is called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So that's the one big difference out the bat, I guess, because obviously in this one, Gene Wilder is the star, and and he's sort of a much bigger presence in this, as in terms of like a main character compared to I think Charlie. You follow Charlie a lot more in the book. So yeah, so Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory came out in 1971. So this is like 50 years old. This film,
Amazing.
like over 50 years old. It's incredible that I've watched it quite recently. It's still absolutely brilliant. The film.
Yeah.
And just off the bat, again, very clear. I absolutely love this film. I hadn't watched it for a while, and I watched it with my daughter, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder if she's going to enjoy it, and she does. She really does. I mean, she's watching all the new stuff and CGI and all that kind of stuff. But watching this, and she still really enjoyed it. Still found it fun, silly. The songs are great. So yeah, it was really fun to watch. Um, but I guess just how do you feel about the film, Dave? Was it something that you watched a lot as a kid, or
Yeah. So a lot. Yeah. As a kid, this was sort of always on the TV. I'm pretty sure we had it recorded on VHS somewhere. Um, and yes, it's always been a good one. My parents absolutely and me love Gene Wilder. I
Mm,
mean, I'd be happy to do a Gene Wilder series and just review a load of his stuff.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, in this, it's like he was made for this role, and um, yeah, it's a really good one. I mean, I'm not a book reader, but I have read this book. I remember reading it as a kid, and Roald Dahl, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I remember really enjoying the book, reading it all the way through. And then obviously the next one is the Great Glass Elevator,
yeah.
which I wasn't as much of a fan of, but yeah, this film is brilliant, and I'd love to just get into it, get into the film, I guess, and
Yeah.
every scene has got a bit of gold in it, really, hasn't it? Even if it's just him running home with the ticket that he's, and running into Slugworth, or
Yeah, I
I don't know,
mean,
I don't know how you want to go
no,
about
I
the
think, I
review.
think, yeah, I think this one, I'm happy to go through it, like you're saying, the story. Obviously, the story is about a young boy called Charlie, or it's about Willy Wonka, but it's about a young boy called Charlie. We follow him, and we see that he's very poor. He's going to school, and then we find out on the news that this famous chocolatier, this famous chocolate maker, famous sweet maker, um, is auctioning off visits to his factory, um, and you can get, there's going to be a golden ticket in one of these. In a Wonka bar of any description across the world. Now, these are the most famous chocolate bars in the whole world. Everyone wants them, and the whole world goes absolutely bananas in trying to find them. And yeah, that's kind of like the opening premise, and we're following Charlie. You sort of do feel for this kid. He does. kind of remind me of the kid from the book. He's quite small, quite wafy, and they make the grandparents exactly how you would think them as well from the book. So just you have to at least enjoy this kid, because otherwise, you don't really care whether or not um, what happens to him later on. So they think they do a good job of him and Grandpa Joe. Um, Obviously, one of the biggest differences to the books, obviously, they have musical numbers. So they obviously added in music into this film, and in some ways, um, that might be something that people would be sort of against. I think, because it's not a like for like interpretation of the book.
Mm.
Um, but I think it adds a lot to the film. Um, I think there's only one song I don't like, which is I think the mother's song where she's
I was just thinking about that.
yeah, where it's not it's just a bit, it sort of slows the whole thing down. I think when some of the other
Yeah.
ones are, I've got a golden ticket, and it's sort of
Very
like,
upbeat.
yeah, very
Oompa
upbeat, and
loompa.
yeah, the Oompa Loompa
Yeah.
songs, um, um,
Come with
Willy, yeah,
me.
World of Imagination, of Pure Imagination from Gene Wilder. Again, just perfection. That song is to make you feel a certain way in that room when you first see it. But we'll get to that. So yeah, the music, the additions of music, I think actually really work in the film.
Absolutely.
And
I love the opening where it's got like the chocolate being made
oh,
in a
some of the
factory.
best, some of the
What-
best looking chocolate you're ever gonna see.
I know. I'd eat it out of the bin today. No, it looks great, and that just sets a really nice tone.
Yeah, it
I
really
think
does,
I
doesn't
think
it?
you're
That chocolate is incredible.
I think you're right in about Charlie
Yeah.
as well. Like you got to get on board with him, and I think they do a really good job at his story starting off on this ground level,
Mm,
relatable. He can't even afford a Wonka bar. I think
yeah.
when he goes into that,
Yeah, he
that
finds
sweet
the
shop.
coin. He finds the coin, doesn't he, to buy
And
it in the end.
I remember my parents saying like, "Oh, sweet shops were like that," when they grew up, and it just looks
Mm,
amazing. All these jars, and
yeah,
you know,
incredible. And
and
even
he
the
finds,
song,
and he's like,
the
"Oh yeah."
Candyman can, cause it's just, yeah, another brilliant song.
I mean, looking back on some of this stuff now, he's like touching the boy's hair, and it's like there's bits in it, and it's like, why is Grandpa Joe in the bed, and then alone the mum's working, and there's loads of
Grandpa
stuff, isn't
Joe
there?
is, some people try and paint him as the villain, which
It's
is
like
which is
Cobra Kai.
funny, which is funny, but I do love Grandpa Joe, but I understand that the sort of thought process behind the fact that, oh, now that Charlie's got this really cool present, he can jump out of bed and he can dance and he starts singing, and it's like, hang on a sec, he's been in his bed for
Well,
20 years.
is there a conversation about him wanting to take his mum? Because I swear there is.
I think that might be, not in this. I don't
No.
think, I'm not sure in this. I think in the books he might ask for his parents to go with him, and then they're like, oh no, we've got to work, don't be silly, or something like that. But I'm not sure
Yeah.
in this if he does. But yeah, the kid, he finds he finds the coin, he buys the lot. We think there's no Wonka bars left, and he gets the ticket. I just want to point out one part of the film that I really, really enjoy. I mean, there's so many that I enjoy, but one part I really, really enjoy is when we're watching the world try and find these golden tickets, and you're
Mm.
seeing, like you're seeing all the different people. Like there's a guy with a computer, like this computer will find me the golden ticket, and then it points out like not on your life or something like. And there's all these sort of funny little skits to get the golden ticket. And then there's I think there's like a hostage situation, and it's like your husband's been taken hostage. She's like, I'll do anything to get him back. And they're asking for your stash of Wonka bars, and she's like, I'm not sure I can do that. Like, I'm sure he'll be okay. Like, she is
Yeah, yeah.
like something like that. Like, she just will not give up her Wonka bars, and all these
Mm.
little sort of moments, um,
Yeah.
in there that quite just to show you the desperation that the
and
world
and you've
has to
obviously
get
got
these tickets.
you've got one of the girls, and the dad's bought that whole like a factory full of them opening the
Yes.
bars.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not Veruca, is it?
That is Veruca Salt.
Yeah.
Again, I think they
I
do.
want it now. That
Yeah,
she,
awful, an
she
awful. Again, they do a great job. She's terrible as a not as a character. The character is like, ugh, he hates her
yeah.
so much. So again, a really good um casting and good performance to have you just like, ugh, I do not like this
And
girl whatsoever.
then you've got the disgusting Augustus who just eats everything.
Yeah, and then you obviously, so yeah, you meet the other children as well. So Mike TV, Augustus
Oh
Gloop,
yeah.
Lucas Salt, um, and I always forget the last one. I can't remember her name. Um,
The blueberry violet. No.
Violet Beauregard, that's it. And you meet
I'm
them
impressed.
all, and again, they do a really good job setting that all up. You get a real feel for the character really quickly. They do a little interview with them, and you understand what they're trying to be. So yeah, really good setup to it, and then you get to the chocolate factory. So they built this thing up, and I can't remember how far into it, but it's really built up. You haven't seen Willy Wonka yet. Um, and so you get to the part where you get, everyone's outside the factory. Oh my God, he's opening the gates. This is
Oh,
unbelievable.
can I just add one
Yeah, go,
thing?
go, go, go.
Slugworth, you see him with every
Yes,
child, don't you?
yes. You see this
Um,
sort of,
whisper
yeah,
of you don't know what he's saying, and then obviously when it gets to Charlie, it's you get me the everlasting
everlasting.
gobstopper.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
you kind
yeah.
of got that like, oh, Slugworth is gonna,
Yeah, and he looks very
whatever.
menacing, a mysterious character.
I think he's got his own theme, hasn't he? In this,
I think so. I think
I mean, it's
so.
not like a Darth Vader or anything, but it's no, but like there's like a dark tone sort of music comes on when he's
Yeah,
there.
and we get to the factory, and we see, everyone's waiting, they're waiting, and then we see Willy Wonka. And he comes out and he's hobbling out. He's like limping, and I just think it's just, and obviously it's just brilliant. That whole opening bit, because he's limping, he's limping, he's limping. He puts his sticks his stick into the ground. It's stuck. He walks a couple more steps, and he kind of realizes he's not holding the stick, and he does like a forward roll, and then jumps up, and everyone's like, "Wow, look, wow, this is amazing." And supposedly, again, hearing a story about this, Gene Wilder sort of said, like, came up with that sort of concept of the deception of this guy to sort of
Yeah,
add a bit more mystery. It's like, oh, what is this? This guy's a bit, you don't know what you can believe about this guy and what he's saying. Um,
yeah,
so, and it adds to that. It's such a good, the way he looks. Even his outfit is brilliant. That purple jacket, the hat, everything just looks brilliant. I still watch it now, and I don't know how they managed to get that stick to stay perfectly into the ground. It's incredible. Like, because obviously it's not CGI or anything. So
mm,
they did a really good practical effect having that stick stay upright in the ground there. But again, it starts off, and you see him welcome all the kids in, and he's very excitable. But it's just a great entrance to that character.
yeah. No, definitely, and yeah, like everyone's waiting, and he's just got the world watching him, hasn't he? It's like
Mm,
they do a really good job of like the factory being this mystery and like a magical factory, but no one's ever said it's magic. You get
yeah,
you get it from the
the
way they set
excitement
it
from
up.
the excitement from everyone, and also him as a character. He is this sort of just odd, otherworldly kind of
Mm,
character, right? He's not normal. He's a very
mm,
strange guy, and everything about him, the way like you said, all that excitement, him walking out, no one knows what he really, what is going to happen, and yeah, I just think it's just a great build up to it.
mm.
Um, and then there's some fun bits, just I don't know if I'm going to go through that because I could go through the whole story and I'm going to try not to, but there's just so many fun little bits. But basically, this bit leads up to when they first get into the is it the chocolate mixing room? I guess it's called. Um,
I mean, my memory of when they go in is they put their their hats on, and the hands are like grabbing the hats.
yes.
and then they've got to read that thing and sign it,
and
and
it
it's so
goes
small.
small, and then he's like, "Well, you having a song here, Wonka?"
Yeah,
and
and then
stuff.
it's like go, and then it's like go through the door, and it's
Mm.
like there's nothing here, and it's like, oh, what about this door? It's like that's the one we came
From
in.
and then it's a new place, and again it's like he's just like, no, I'm sure the door's over here, and then he walks past like, it's this door, and they're like, what are you talking about? It's the door we just. It's so funny, it's such a
It's like
funny.
It's like Veruca's dad
Mm,
is don't be a silly man, Wonka. We
yeah,
just came through that. He plays really well.
and then they
That,
get down that corridor that gets smaller as they get to the end.
yeah.
It looks like the effects are supposed to look like it's getting further, but it's just a smaller corridor, and they're like, how are we supposed to fit through that door? And then and then he's like, oh, it's a musical lock, and it does like a weird
Oh
like
yeah.
diddly to get in the thing, and everyone's just like, what is going on? And and it goes into it, and then the that music starts. Um,
Why is
pure.
that funny? Why is that? Why is him having a little piano? Like,
I think it's just because it's the way he plays it, right? This is completely normal for him, right? Why wouldn't I have a musical lock? Like it's just that sort of like he doesn't go, oh my god, look at my musical lock. Like he's not making it a big thing. He's just like, yeah, musical lock, and everyone you can see their faces like, what is this? What is this guy? And they're all hunched down because the corridor's small. So it's just a funny situation. And then yeah, it goes into that pure imagination song, and
and the size of the door is ridiculous as
it
well,
goes
isn't
from
it?
small to gigantic, doesn't it? Like so big. But again, because again, we're sort of being told this place is really weird. Like
Mm,
it's not following normal conventions of stuff. And
mm.
when he's singing and he's walking down the stairs, but he's using his stick to stop the kids from getting in front of him. And it's really, if you watch it, it's brilliant that he's just sort of snaps the stick at like Veruca. He stops Mike TV, and he's singing and he's going up and down the stairs, and he's just like this. It's such a he is so good as Willy Wonka.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
he's just brilliant. He's so, like I said, he's just sort of this weird, like kind of nearly an alien type person. He's not, he's just this very strange person. And
Mm,
um, and when they go into that room, you just want to eat that whole room. It
mm.
looks amazing. Now I'm sure all of it is probably like paper and plastic, and like, do you know what I
Rubber.
mean? And it's none of obviously none of it is edible. Maybe a few of the bits on the
I
insides and
I
stuff.
always I always wanted one of those giant, the bears,
I was just thinking that they
that
looked
all,
amazing.
and then, but I think that there's one bit where she's like got her hand in like the honey pot, and it's
Yeah,
like, "Ugh,"
yeah. And then I just think that I always think of this in this bit where he sung the song. It's sort of finishing up. He drinks a drink out of like a he picks a cup of tea or something off a plant, and he drinks it, and he looks
oh
at it and then
yeah,
just eats the cup, and it's just brilliant. It's just again he is just brilliant. And then obviously we get to the part with the chocolate river. I do understand. I am actually going through this as like a whole story, but it's just really it's just to show that just he.
it's like it's worthy of mentioning in every
Yeah, I
scene.
think so because I just think he is so good, and this is where like Augustus is he gets his eyes are too big for his body in this case, and he falls into the chocolate river. And
Can I set you up?
can you say?
You know what I'm going to say.
uh,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
the bit. One of the reasons I think we said we do this is because you were talking about how Willy Wonka, when the children are in danger, he'd say a certain thing.
yeah, yeah.
You can.
Oh
That's
yeah,
me
so yeah,
saying.
so obviously in this one, in this one, he goes, um, the mum says like, "Oh, help Augustus! Like, please don't just stand
Call
there,
the
do something." He's and he
call the
and
police or
obviously,
something. Yeah.
yeah, and then Willy Wonka's like, "Help, police, murder," and he says it like he just doesn't care that this kid is going to like could die. He genuinely just doesn't care because, as we find out later, he's a naughty kid. He's got it. he hasn't obeyed the rules. They told him to stop drinking out of the thing, and he
Mm.
falls in, and he's kind of like, oh wow, this guy's is he crazy? Like, he doesn't seem to care that this kid is falling in and could be drowning, and
Well,
then he
when
gets
well, when the kids are doing what they're supposed to, he's fine and he's happy with
yes,
them enjoying it.
correct.
But as soon as he falls in, what
He
does he
just
say? He says, "My chocolate."
yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah,
say, "Oh, Augustus."
yeah, he couldn't care less because this kid is now sort of the kid's kind of dead to him now because he didn't follow the rules. And yeah, he kind of just gets sucked. I remember as a kid, Augustus getting sucked up that um pipe was so shocking to me, such a visual, and I was like, man, that's so scary. Could you imagine being stuck in that pipe? Like, oh, just terrible. And then and then obviously
I mean, it didn't look comfortable, did it?
no, no, no. And then Mrs. Gloop just gets taken off to find him or whatever with the Oompa Loompas, and obviously Oompa Loompas in this have their own little song, and they're kind of again adds to just how weird this place is and how he's kind of mocking them. In the Oompa Loompas actually in the books they do sing songs, so there that is a comparison comparable
Mm.
between the two. So they did sing songs in the book and stuff, but they were kind of they weren't like this. They didn't weren't orange as far as I can tell in the books and whatnot. um and then just one more
Mm.
part about him, a really unsettling another thing to sort of show this guy is so weird. So when they get on that boat, um and he starts like they're going through some sort of psychedelic tunnel, and he starts singing, and it's just so
Yeah,
unsettling. My daughter does not enjoy that bit because it is quite scary because he starts singing and he looks crazy, starts like screaming at them. um and
dude. There's a chicken that gets its head cut off.
yeah, like it's crazy. And they're certainly not
There's
sure.
like bugs crawling on people's faces,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and he's like rhyming and he's saying all this weird stuff, and yeah, so it is quite that again. It just adds to his sort of very strange character that just sort of quite keeps you off balance. Him in that way, and then yeah, so just again to say it again, he's just brilliant. He really is. Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka is just brilliant. The character is brilliant, um, and just love his portrayal with all of them. And obviously, as we go along, we lose more of the kids because again, they're not paying attention to what he's saying. Don't do that. I think the one with Mike TV is where he's like, "No, please stop." Like he just like Mike. He's like, "Yeah, don't do it." Like he he doesn't care at all. Um, so
yeah. Well, you've got Mike TV. He's like, shoot me so that I'm small. You've got Veruca
she falls
jumps with
down.
the golden egg, goose
Yeah, and
egg or whatever.
she gets uh classified as a rotten egg or a bad egg or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, she's going down to the furnace." He's like, "Well, the furnace might not be on today," and he has no idea. Again, this girl could be incinerated, and he just like, like,
And
and
then
then
with the Violet
yeah,
eating the sweet that is like a
yes,
full roast dinner,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then it's like she balloons up, and it's like, well, they have to do it or she might explode. He's like, explode.
yeah. You have to
And,
take her to the juicing room to juice
yeah,
her.
and it's like again pulls out that little whistle, you know,
Yeah.
does a little
Just
tune
again,
on
just
it.
mocking these people with this like weird whistling. He's like, this kid's gonna die, and he's like, nah, just take it to the juicing room. It's fine.
Yeah,
Um, so he's just it's just a very funny portrayal, and obviously Charlie gets in
and
trouble
and
because he
Grandpa.
and Grandpa they get in trouble, and it's really Grandpa's fault again, the villain of the piece. Um, he they have the fizzy lifting drinks, and then at the end, Mr. Wonka, Willy Wonka is like, "You get nothing. You get absolutely." He screams at him, and you're like, "Oh, that's again." It's sort of out of nowhere, and then Charlie gives him the everlasting gobstopper back, because the offer was
Yeah.
to get this for Slugworth, and he goes, he doesn't want to do that because Charlie obviously is a good kid, and he likes Mr. Wonka, or at least like the factory and stuff, so he didn't want to, he
Yeah.
didn't want
Do you know
to.
always? Do you always?
Go on, Dave.
No, yeah, go on.
No, no, I
No,
was
no, no. I
just
was
saying
just going to say
he didn't want
the
to.
the room.
Go on, go on, go on.
I
That,
think we've got a bit of a lag.
yeah, don't worry.
No, just the room that Willy Wonka's in. Everything is like cut in half, and
Yes.
it's like half a chair or half a desk, half a the globe or whatever it is, and
Mm,
it's like that always bothered me. So how can you work in this silly
yeah.
room? But it's just to add to the the factory, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Again, I think it's a lot of it's just to put people off, like to keep them off balance, because it's like, what is this room? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And yeah, because Charlie gives it back. He doesn't want to betray the trust of Mr. Wonka or the factory or whatever. Um, Mr. Wonka, Willy Wonka, actually turns around and is like, you passed the test. And so none of these other kids probably would pass the test because they were just going to give it to the Slugworth. And obviously, it turns out Slugworth was a plant from Mr. Wonka, from Willy, I keep saying Mr. Wonka, Willy Wonka, um, to test the kids to see who was, of good heart and good spirit, honest and kind and stuff, who could take over his factory. And he's got to give his factory, give his factory
Do you know
to one of these kids.
that would that would be a really good quiz question. You could have him pop up and say, "Who is this character?"
Mm,
And people would go, "That's Slugworth," but it wasn't Slugworth. We
no,
never see Slugworth.
no. Slugworth is
I can't.
is a
He does,
character in the world, but that isn't Slugworth.
and I think he even calls him a name. No, it's like that's Mr. Anderson. He works for me.
Yeah,
It doesn't say Anderson, but he says
whatever he
something
says.
along
Yeah,
those lines.
he says
Yeah,
something, doesn't he? Yeah,
he gives him a name that isn't Slugworth, and you're like, oh,
yeah, yeah,
and he
yeah.
shakes his hand, and even that is like the guy looks so creepy.
Mm.
And then obviously we get to the finale of the Wonkavator.
Yeah, he calls it the Wonkavator. Obviously, we know it as the Great Glass Elevator.
Hmm.
Again, I guess they changed it because they thought Great Glass Elevator was a big mouthful, but it is the Great Glass Elevator. And it's just that, it's like we're going to go through we're going to keep going up, up, up. We need to pick up speed, and then they smash through the roof,
Mm.
and it's flying
You can def-
again. It's it's mental, it's crazy. Like, this guy has created a lift, an elevator that is flying through the sky, and he tells Charlie, like, his family can live in the factory, he's gonna have the factory, and that he can't go on forever, and it's just a really nice ending. It's a really lovely ending, actually, because
it's really heartfelt when they're hugging each other, isn't it? You're
and
like,
do you remember
oh,
what he says? I've just pulled up the line because it is really nice. He goes, "But Charlie, don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he always wanted." And Charlie's like, "What happened?" And he's like, "He lived happily ever after." And then they hug, and it's just really heartwarming, really nice ending to this story, and it's lovely. And you can see that even though Willy Wonka is a bit, well, not a bit, very crazy and very strange. He is obviously heartfelt in his quest to find a good kid to give his factory to. So it's just a really nice ending, and we're flying over. I guess it's Germany or something, Austria. It's Europe somewhere.
I wouldn't say I agree with that statement in real life, though.
What do you mean?
If everyone got what they wanted, they'd
Yeah, I'm
be
not
living happily
necessarily.
ever after.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that is a truthful statement, but in this context,
Yeah,
it was
for
very
him to
nice.
be nice, and for him to be nice.
Yeah.
I also remember as a kid when I used to watch that end bit, and it would just hovering above the city. I would always look for my house. I just believed that it was
It could have been
filmed.
Watford or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, is it that? Oh, do I recognise that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then yeah, the credits roll, and yeah, I feel like it's quite a short film when you watch it. It's sort of
Uh,
over quite quickly.
I think
I
so. I
don't
think
know.
that I'm
I,
not sure how long it actually is.
yeah, I'm not sure
It's an
either.
hour and 40 minutes. So yeah, it isn't the longest film in the world. Again, it doesn't waste your time. It doesn't hang around.
Mm.
Um, it's very fun.
It's
Um,
quality though. It's quality stuff.
oh yeah, no, absolutely. There's no doubt in it. It, because obviously the source material is great. Roald Dahl, a prolific children's author, um, so many great books, and the world is there on the page already. So they just need to. This is why I always think sometimes they overthink these things, and it's like,
Mm.
oh, we've got to put our spin on it, or we've got to do something to make it different, blah blah blah. And it's like they always end up making it worse. Whereas I feel like here they kept the same kind of structure of the thing, and
Mm.
they added bits in like the music into it, but they didn't. It wasn't too much of a deviation from the um, from the books, including his portrayal of the character,
Mm.
which kind of leads me to just obviously we're not talking. So overall, I really enjoy this film, but just to sort of make the point about the other films that are have one is out, one is coming out. You know, Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka just didn't work.
No.
It just didn't, and it was truly terrible. Um, how how bad it was especially it just how bad it was in general, and then how bad it was
It was
in
just creepy, wasn't
comparison.
it? It
How
was
bad it was in
uncomfortable.
comparison to Gene Wilder. I mean, it just awful.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
um, and he just didn't. He just got the creepiness too much, um, and yeah, it just didn't. The balance wasn't right. It was a weird looking world. The Oompa Loompas were like doing rock songs or something. It just was wrong. It was just all wrong.
Yeah.
It was just all wrong. I think some of the characters looked right as you would expect in your head, but I just think Willy Wonka was just completely wrong. Um,
Yeah.
in that film. Um, I think this new prequel film called Wonka again. I just think if you're gonna, I just think just do the Great Glass Elevator or something. Like go afterwards because I just think just don't do it because Gene Wilder's just so good. It's so hard to just replicate that to even try and get close to that. I just think
I
unless you're
agree.
going to do
I
something
agree.
really different.
I agree, but at least they're not doing the same story again.
True,
At least
true,
it's like,
true.
at least it's a prequel. You know,
The only thing I
Hugh
don't
Grant.
particularly like about it being a prequel is that obviously we don't really know that much about Willy Wonka's life before we
Yeah,
see meet him in this book. So obviously this is someone extrapolating um, and
it's not.
having creative license and trying to line things up. So it's going to be a bit off because obviously it's not Roald Dahl who filled out the full biographical history of this character. So there's going to be some things that feel a bit, not in
Well,
line tone wise. But I think the people that made Paddington are making this. So there's hope. There's definitely hope for it. I liked both Paddington films, so you can only just
I
live in
think
hope with them.
sometimes I think characters don't need a prequel.
Hmm.
So, like Joker,
Yes.
I was very worried for that. A great film as it was, the mystery of how the Joker became that crazy
Yeah.
is better in my opinion when it's left to your imagination.
And I
Like,
would absolutely agree with that, especially in the Dark Knight where he gives like three different versions of his history. And
yeah,
so you're like, oh, this guy's out of his mind because it adds to the creepiness. And I guess you're going to lead on to Willy Wonka. We have no
exactly.
idea, and it adds to just the mystery of this. How did he become
Yeah,
this way? And if you actually fill in the whole, all the dots, it probably isn't as weird and isn't as
mm,
off-putting and isn't as creepy. If you're like, oh, just one day when he was a kid, he ate a chocolate bar, and then he liked chocolate, and then he walked, and then he went to the jungle, and then he found the recipe book, and then I don't know if I really
I
need to
mean,
know that.
this trailer hints at some sort of trauma with his mum
Mm,
because he says something like, "This is for you, mum," or something like. There's
yeah.
obviously something, and then he has a little flashback where he sees her amongst something. So they're obviously going to play his mum in it somewhere.
I just always felt like Willy Wonka just. I think they
Isn't
might
it?
mention his. I, th- did they mention his dad in the book? I can't remember, but it just for me, he was just like born and then his parents just had no idea what to do with this kid that was just
Mm,
like completely odd from the beginning because he
yeah,
isn't normal at all. And so I just think, and I would never, if know, read the character, know the character of Willy Wonka, I'm not sure if he would be thinking. He never really thought backwards. Like he wasn't like reminiscing or like, oh, for you, mum, or that just to me
yeah,
anyway. I never got that
yeah,
vibe from that character. So I don't know.
yeah,
Hopefully it's good. I'm just hoping it's good. I enjoy that world. I love Roald Dahl books. I love all the different worlds he created. Um, and I really, really love Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So um,
yeah.
I'm
Give it a
hoping,
watch.
yeah, I'm hoping that is going to be good. Um, okay, well, I haven't really got much else to say on it other than just it's brilliant. And if you've never seen it, go and see it, or go and see it. Just rent it or buy it or whatever, because it is very, very good.
I'm going to leave on one line that I was going to mention earlier,
Okay.
and it's when one of the girls isn't listening to Willy Wonka's instructions, and Charlie says to his grandpa Joe, "Why doesn't she listen to Mr. Wonka?" Because Charlie, she's a nitwit.
There's
And
so
that bit
so
made
many
me.
good there's so many good lines in this film, just brilliant lines. And I still think it's criminal that there isn't a line of Wonka chocolates. I know they brought them out for a bit back in the day, but
They were the exploding ones.
I just think, I went to the Roald. This is completely off. This is complete tangent, but I went to the Roald Dahl Museum with my family, and you get to the gift shop at the end, and you can't buy a Wonka bar, and I was like, guys, you're missing. This
Yeah,
should be mandatory. There should be a Wonka. I should be able to buy a Wonka bar with a golden ticket in it. Like that just feels like an absolute
yeah,
tap in. So I just
it's
think it's criminal that there isn't a line of confectionery for Wonka because I just think people would buy it all the time.
an absolute tap in. I've never heard that.
Yeah, well, it would be though, right? Like you've just been to the Roald Dahl Museum. Oh man, I love Roald Dahl. You get to the end. Oh my God, there's a chocolate bar with a golden ticket. Like, of course you're gonna buy it. I just
Yeah,
feel everyone would buy it. I'd buy like 10 just, just to say I've had one. Like, and you should be able to buy an
well,
everlasting gobstopper. Obviously, it won't be
I,
everlasting, but like you should be able to buy this stuff
I
from
feel
the
like
thing.
the chocolate bar Milka. I feel like used they've used like the Wonka font, haven't they, and the colours.
Kind of, yeah.
And it's a little bit like Dairy Milk, but I feel like Anyway, yeah, we're going well off topic, but
Way off topic,
yeah,
but hey, this, this we take it wherever it leads us. But
that's
yeah,
it.
just really enjoy the film, and I will be watching that, but hopefully with for years and years to come, because I said Robin, my daughter really enjoys it. So yeah,
Definitely
I think that's it.
cool.
Okay, well we'll be back again soon with another review. And so that's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Bye.